We will be talking about the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 rumors. Apple reportedly, I love this, Apple reportedly knew the iPhone 6 was bendier than previous models. You think? I've been saying this for a long time, and I want to talk about that in a little bit here. Bug in T-Mobile's website exposes customers' account data. That includes their phone numbers, names, addresses, all that good stuff. They plugged a hole, but still, who knows what kind of damage has been done there. Amazon device recorded couple's private conversation, sent it to random contact. Probably need to start getting used to these kinds of stories. I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening in the future. HTC U12 Plus ships without a 3.5mm headphone jack adapter, but includes USB-C headphones depending on where you live. So it looks like there's some differences between the US and other markets for that product. Alleged Google Pixel, and I should remind everyone, everything is alleged in today's world, so that's why I put these sources down at the bottom so you can verify them yourselves. And if someone stated something that wasn't 100% accurate, we want to know who that was. But they're saying that the Google Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL screen protectors will show that there may be front-facing speakers and a notch on at least one of those models. iOS 12 could let you unlock your hotel room door with NFC. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. There was no this, apparently, so we'll just jump right into it. Why does that happen? What's going on? We got Nate's Tech Services, Greg M., good to see you, Johnny Chang, 1001 Noisy Cameras, Real World Reviews in the house, and we had a question right off the bat here, and I want to try to catch up to that quickly here. Any tutorials on how to fix the Westworld hosts? I'm not sure what that means. Unless you're talking about something in the series itself, because I haven't caught up on season 2 yet. Greg talking about no services allowing one to do remote support and online backup, always evaluating what's available so that I can give clients the best advice, which is what we always do, right? I don't have any input really on that one. As far as online backup, when it comes to the devices that we work with, we're typically talking about iTunes or Google in one shape, form, or another, whether you're using email to back up your content, your contacts, Google Drive, that kind of stuff. So I don't really have anything else on that. I would say skeptical for a number of reasons about online backups. If you want to back up something onto a cloud server, that's fine. I would still recommend you have at least 2 or 3 other backup methods that you have easy access to yourself in separate physical locations, just in case, because clouds are fairly reliable, but knowing that at least historically at times they have been hacked, they've been compromised in other ways, you don't want to leave your only important, your only copy or your only backup copy of something important on a third-party server, because we just never know what happens in the future there. So I would encourage everyone to make their own backups, and then if you want to use whatever it may be, if it's iTunes, which obviously, or I should say iCloud, because we've got iTunes on the machine, iCloud on the server. There's Amazon, Google, there's a Dropbox, all sorts of different options there. But I'm not particularly a huge fan myself. I like to have control over my information, where it's stored, easy access to it, and not have to worry about anything being corrupted later on, not being my own fault, of course. Pixel 3 notch, yes, that's what we're going to talk about that in just a second, Johnny. I've got some photos here we can take a look at. So, Westworld HBO TV show, what was the question there on how to fix a Westworld host? So you're talking about like the robots, like the androids or whatever, are in the movie or in the show? I'm not sure if I understand that. What about RAID SD card configuration on a smartphone? That would be interesting. Something I'm probably not the right person to ask about that, but most people who take their work seriously have a RAID drive of some sort installed at home for their PCs, or I would assume Macs if that's possible. But I don't know about the configuration of that on a smartphone. Sounds like it would be a good idea to have it just kind of automatically back up and have redundancy so that if one partition becomes corrupted, you've got other backup sectors on there. However it is that works. Yes, this was an attempt at a TV show fixing repair joke. Okay, all right, cool. It went over my head. That's all. So I'm sure it made sense. I just didn't get it. Yeah, as far as fixing the host on Westworld, man, I need to get my HBO turned back on so I can get caught up on that. Let's see. I deal with home. This is Greg M. I deal with home and small business users, and getting them to do regular backups that are stored offsite is a pain. I understand. This is the one thing that we always run into. No matter how much someone is willing to pay to recover their lost data, try getting them to back up on a regular basis. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's really just not second nature for most of us. You know, if we're not consciously thinking about it, a lot of us just aren't in the habit of making backups. I've finally got myself to that point after losing on 2 separate occasions quite a bit of invaluable data, you know, something that you can't really put a price tag on. So I say good luck with that. Maybe sell them some sort of backup service or system, because it's possible that when someone commits to paying a certain dollar amount, even if it's on a monthly or a yearly basis for storage, they might be more likely to take advantage of it and actually use it. You know, that's just a thought. One person nearly lost all their photos when their hard drive had issues. Yeah, I've been there myself. I need to throw to me, is that yourself? Why no one has launched a stone chiseled backup service? It would be more impervious than a fluffy cloud thing. You got a point there. Even people who preach about the necessity of backups don't do proper backups. Guilty as charged. I'll say, you know, I tell people all the time, and I've only recently gotten much better about it because I've had so much stuff get lost. So we're going to talk about, hey, Ibrahim, how are you? We are going to talk about a couple of those things. I'm not sure how much information we have on the SE2. I believe that when WWDC gets started, we might get a little more from Apple on that, but you know how secretive they can be about that stuff. But let's go over here so we can take a look at what's happening this week. And this is one of the reasons that I just felt like I've got to be here every Monday, even if it's a holiday, and that is because so much happens in tech from one day to the next. You know, it's literally we're playing catch up from last Thursday till this Monday. You know, we do 2 live streams a week, and I still feel like so much happens in between those 2 points in time that I want to try to stay up to date on it. Let's see, and backups are the only first half of the story. The other half is actually finding the data you want in the device of restore after data loss. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. So first off here, I wanted to bring up the Galaxy Note 9 leaks. This is stuff that we're hearing, or rumors I should say. I don't even want to call them leaks at this point. But they're saying, allegedly, that the Note 9 will probably be powered by the latest Snapdragon 845 or Samsung's own Exynos 9810 chipset, which would make a lot of sense. You know, we certainly wouldn't expect Samsung to take a step backwards, so I don't really think that that's telling us anything we don't already expect or assume to know to be the case. Depending on your region, apparently, is the factor here. So in the US, I believe we'll be expecting to see the Snapdragon 845, although Europe and Asia may see the Exynos version. I really don't know for sure at this point. It will likely include 6 gigs of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage for the US version is what they're saying, which you'll be able to upgrade to an extra 400 gigabytes via a micro SD card. So apparently micro SD support for the Galaxy Note 9 as far as we know. However, the Chinese leaker Ice Universe, who I have not heard of before, but apparently there's someone out there who might have some inside information that we don't have access to, claims that it will come with 8 gigabytes of RAM and a whopping 512 gigabytes of storage, but only if you are lucky. And I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that. It could be in reference to what part of the world you're located in, maybe some sort of limited edition release. I really don't know. But having a phone at this point in time with 512 gigabytes of storage does not sound like a bad idea. I mean, you know, every few months we see that applications and processes are taking up more and more storage and more processing power and everything else. So typically we just keep going up. And, you know, remember computers used to double in storage, what was it, like every 6 months or something like that when it came to hard drives. So it wouldn't be a big surprise if we see a 512 gigabyte version for the Galaxy Note 9, if we are lucky, as he says. Probably dual cameras on the back based on some more leaked photos that show that configuration for screen protectors and cases for the Galaxy Note 9. So it looks like a lot of people are going to that vertical arrangement for the rear-facing cameras. Hopefully variable aperture. That is one thing that we like about Samsung and Androids in general, is that they give us a little more control over the cameras themselves, whereas if you're running iOS, it's generally point and shoot for the most part. You do have some adjustments you can make, but not really full control over the camera, which is something that anyone who does photography would be excited about. Possibly a 3,850 milliamp battery, up from the 3,300 milliamp battery of the Galaxy Note 8. I think that all came out right. So this is what they're saying. Also, let's see. Let's go down here to the specs so you can get a look at this along with me. Oh, and this emoji thing, apparently, or an emoji thing, supposed to be a big deal. Not sure how big of a selling point that's going to be, and personally just questioning like how many people who use iPhones actually take advantage of this animated emoji deal. I don't really know, but Samsung's apparently taking it a step further on the Galaxy Note 9. And let's take a look down here. So we are talking about a 6.38 inch Super AMOLED panel, 2960 by 1440, 18.5 to 9 aspect ratio, which I'm still not used to, but I guess that's going to be the new thing. We talked about the processor and storage already. Micro SD support. Water resistance IP68 is the rumor. Headphone jack, yes. So if you are a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack enthusiast, this will be good news for you. I believe that we're going to be seeing those go away, little by little, probably throughout the industry at some point in time. Just depends on which phone you happen to be buying. Android 8.1 Oreo with Samsung Experience. S Pen stylus, of course, facial recognition, iris scanner, and as I mentioned earlier, AR emoji. We'll see if those catch on. It'll be interesting to see. So let's make sure we did not miss any comments here. I'm going to try to get through these topics as quickly as possible. These tend to run on a bit, I know. Let's see. Our Samsung. Oh, let me back up here a second. Redundancy, always have an extra cost and risk of information leak. Right. Are Samsung and Huawei the only manufacturer minting their own SoC so far? Possibly. I want to say yes, but I may be missing. There might be a few other brands out there that are, but I don't think so. I think those are the only two as far as I know, Johnny. PS4 level of complexity in a pocket size. Hey, John Cassidy, how are you? Can the S Pen button be used as a remote camera shutter button? I don't know. That's a good question. That is a good question. So this is everything we know as of today. All these manufacturers, in my opinion, leak this stuff out willfully, and they call them rumors and everything. So a lot of times we have a pretty good idea of what's happening. I do want to move over to the next thing here. And by the way, folks, if you haven't already done so, please smash that like button down way over there in the corner while I'm thinking of it, because I always forget to ask. And I know that if you didn't like this, you wouldn't be here, but I certainly don't always remember to do that when I'm watching a video until someone tells me. So if you feel inclined to do so, I would certainly appreciate it. Let's go over here to the iPhone 6 Plus. We knew this was coming. Okay, now for any of you who have been watching this stream for, I don't know, the last 6 or 9 months or whatever we've been doing it here, I've been saying for a long time that, how do I put this without saying anything that could be legally misconstrued? Okay, I allegedly, okay, in my opinion, it seems like it was impossible for Apple not to understand that there was a problem with the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus, period, when it comes to bendability. When it comes to structural support, they tried to make the phone lighter and thinner. Excuse me. They accomplished those goals, but at the same time, they lost the rigidity that we had in the iPhone 5S. And if you can compare the two, take an iPhone 6, if you have a broken one, and an iPhone 5S, and see which one of those you can bend the easiest. So we knew this was a thing. We knew the whole bend gate issue was a deal. All of us who have been fixing these touch disease problems could have told you, from shortly after the phone was released, there was a real problem with the phone bending. Now, to pin that on Apple, I believe that that's the debatable part, because to a certain extent, when you buy something, how much of a responsibility does the manufacturer have to make sure that that product is 100% bulletproof? I mean, there's obviously a huge scale of breakability between very fragile and very durable. And we know that some phones are known to be durable. If you take a look at a cat phone, you take a look at some of the Motorola brands, there are phones out there that are made to be dropped. Like, that's what they're designed for. Apple, Samsung, certainly not falling into those categories unless you're looking at something like a Galaxy Active series. So these phones that have glass fronts and oftentimes glass on the back, we know that if you drop them on concrete, they're going to break. If you have a super lightweight, super thin phone, especially a very tall one, just the simple lever effect that you get by having something be elongated. We know that if there's any pressure at the ends, you've got that, the fulcrum effect pretty much that's going to kind of help it bend that way. So that is, I don't think is a problem. For a company to produce a handset that is easy to damage, I don't think that in and of itself is a problem. If you bought it, sorry, better luck next time. Don't buy that product again. But when that became common knowledge, like everyone knew these phones were bending, and you go to the Apple store and they were claiming that it was a very rare occurrence. That is the story, okay? This is what I've been reading, is that Apple, internal documents, this is what we do know. Internal documents from a court filing have revealed that Cupertino knew from the start that the iPhone 6 was 3.3 times more likely to bend, according to this article, more likely to bend than the iPhone 5S, and the 6 Plus was 7.2 times more prone to bending. Now, I'm not saying that Apple has a responsibility to make a phone that doesn't bend. After all, if I buy a phone from whatever manufacturer, I've done so hopefully based on an educated idea of what to expect as my product. But the fact that Apple knew about this, and when people came to the store and said, hey, I've got, my touchscreen doesn't work, I'm having problems with it, and Apple really gave us the impression, allegedly, gave me the impression that they knew there was a problem, but they really didn't want to acknowledge it while the majority of the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus customers were still under warranty. Now, I don't believe that they would have been obligated to do anything about that unless there was some sort of class action suit that could prove that the burden of responsibility laid on the manufacturer to make sure that a phone can't bend under certain circumstances. We don't, to my knowledge, have a standard when it comes to selling a handset or any other device in the US that, this is the durability factor that we need to see on this phone. So I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is that when you go to an Apple store, if the company policy was to tell the customers that this was a very rare occurrence, it shouldn't happen to them, it's not their fault, they don't know what you're talking about, you should just put some pressure on your phone or bend How about now? Well, that was bizarre. Okay, you guys should be hearing me now, hopefully. I don't understand what happened just now. Like, I just unplugged the mic and plugged it back in, and it seems like we have audio again, right? I'll let you confirm that for me. Ah, that's annoying. Okay, gosh darn it. Sorry, guys. So let's go back to where my... Thank you. Noisy Cameras tried to tell me, and I was just going on and on, so sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Well, that sucks. So you missed my whole thing about the iPhone 6, probably. Oh, man, we're never going to make it through here. All right, so this will force me to speak in as few words as possible. iPhone 6, 6 Plus, we knew the thing bent. Apple apparently did too, from what we can tell. I do want to read this one little clip here, and it says, internal documents from a court filing have revealed that Cupertino knew from the start that the iPhone 6 was 3.3 times more likely to bend than the iPhone 5S. The 6 Plus, 7.2 times more prone to bending. It seems as though Apple knew about this from the start, just like we did, and it's sad that they chose not to publicly acknowledge it much sooner than they did. And the fact that they started adding underfill back in, I think it was May of 2017, to the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, I believe, kind of says, yeah, you know, we know there's a problem there. The Touch IC is lifting off from the motherboard, but it took a long time for them to come out and acknowledge that, and that's the disappointing thing about it. So, unfortunately, you missed everything else that I was saying, so we'll get to that again later on. Let's see. Yeah, so I don't know. Somebody is messing with my audio. It's a weird thing. All I did was... I'm going to keep an eye on it from now on. Do it like the ESPN show that has a timer per story. Yeah, I should. No, that's probably a good idea. I should have something pop up and tell me it's time to move on and check my audio, apparently. So, let's move over here because we are already 30 minutes through. Who heard about this on Unbox Therapy? Andrew McKenzie, how you doing? What did you hear about on Unbox Therapy? I'm curious. Noisy Cam wasn't noisy enough to get Mike's attention. Yeah, sorry guys. I've got so many things on the screen here. I'm really trying to keep up. All right, so let's move on. And maybe Thursday we'll talk a little more about the Bendgate thing. We have here a T-Mobile web portal that exposed 74 million accounts, allegedly. Now, if you have a T-Mobile account, it might not be a bad idea to go in and update all of your passwords everywhere, but according to this article, a whole bunch of people's information was leaked, and the way that it happened was that there was a portal online that you could log into. Let's go right here to it. So it was promotool.tmobile.com. The only problem was it didn't prompt anyone for a login, which apparently was something that it was supposed to do, so you could, not today, but you could have gone to this site and punched in anybody's phone number, I guess, and got their name, address, telephone number, and everything else. So no idea how that happened. They did award someone, Ryan Stevenson, $1,000 for discovering that there was this bug in the website. And what I was saying in the intro was that things like this, Alexa, which I want to talk about in a minute, and all these people's, the potential for identity theft and the potential for people stealing your data. This is an era that we're in, and I think we're only going to see more of in the future. The more sophisticated technology becomes, the more sophisticated criminals tend to become as far as, getting into your information, getting into your financial transactions, and, breaking into banks and everything else. So I think that's something we're going to see a lot more of. Unbox Therapy got viral thanks to the Bendgate exposure prime time. Well, Unbox Therapy, that is so funny. So Unbox Therapy said something, I want to say he had a thing about, Bendgate is true or something like that. How long have we known about this? Like, shortly after the iPhone 6 was released, we all knew about it. Now people are going to say, it's a real thing because, someone with a lot of subscribers on YouTube and probably some journalists out there are saying, Apple has acknowledged it, and because someone filed a class action suit against Apple, and that's how they were able, my understanding is, to subpoena this data from the internal documents from Apple to confirm that, yes, they knew there was a design flaw in the phone. And again, if they made it and you bought it, that's kind of on you. But for them to not come forward and acknowledge that there was a problem, that's unfortunate. Disappointing, I would say. A few years ago, T-Mobile also lost customer data because of a third party they used. If you remember, T-Mobile customer service at one point was also experiencing a problem where people would call in and ask to reset their their two-factor authentication without the proper credentials to access the account. So they call up and they call enough times if they were trying to hack into your account, and they could get your SIM card switched. I think was what they were doing, was they were having them update the SIM card to another SIM on someone else's account, even though that wasn't your account. And knowing people who work in customer service, they often try to go as far as, bend over backwards to make the customer happy. And allegedly, they were doing this in some cases to the point where they were giving out customers' information to someone who wasn't, who was acting as if they were that person who called in. So, and certainly not only a problem for T-Mobile, a lot of other companies have had similar issues where people are able to access records that they're not supposed to have access to. So again, something I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future. What do people think about bug hunting rewards? Does it promote a more secure environment, or does it promote more hacking? Great question. I'm just going to give you my vote, Johnny. I think it is a great way to figure out if there's a problem. And I would go as far as saying that beyond hacking, if we have a system of any sort that is being extorted or taken advantage of in some way, I don't necessarily think it's a terrible idea for people to go as far as they can to break that system so that it brings attention to the fact that it needs to be fixed. Okay, so if we see that someone's bending the rules a bit and kind of taking advantage of something, if it's not hurting someone personally, I don't know that it's terrible that they don't, first of all, go to the organization that has this system in place and say, look, here's a problem with it. Here's how people are taking advantage of it. Here's how people are breaking in. Here's how it's being exploited. And if they don't do anything about it, why not continue to push them? If you're not breaking the law, if you're not hurting anyone, why not push them to see, to bring this out into the open and say there really is a problem with this system. It needs to get fixed. Just my opinion. I'm not saying that I do that myself, but I know that, after talking to a lot of people who are much more into hacking and figuring out how things work and where the security holes all are, the main purpose is to make the system more secure. So I would be in favor of that. That's just my personal opinion. Unbox Therapy is the SNL of tech reviews. Man, I hadn't realized the production value that, I knew Unbox Therapy was popular and I was wondering how he was doing it. And then he kind of showed his cameraman and his setup, and obviously you can see the editing and what goes into his product. So a lot of work, I'm sure, goes into the videos that he produces. Content light with gimmicks. Entertainment seems to be the way to go viral. I think you're onto something there. Noisy cameras. Carl Laterno, welcome, and happy Memorial Day if you're celebrating that. I can't remember where you're from. Are you outside the U.S.? I want to say yes. Communication-wise, in regards to problems, hardware or software, Apple has been really bad. Apple has certainly produced the vast majority of the handsets that we see on the market now. So whether or not that's directly proportional to the number of problems they have percentage-wise, I don't know the answer to that. But most of the time when someone has a problem, it's with an Apple product because, to be fair, I think because there's so much of them out there, they have so much market share. Canada, okay, good. I thought so. So hopefully you are. I'm assuming it's not a holiday for you, but you can still celebrate with us in one way or another just by joining. Whoa, what happened to my page here? Just by joining the stream. All right, so here we have a fun one. Amazon device recorded couple's private conversation, sent it to a random contact. I wish you would stop autoplaying when I pull up a screen. So this is a very short story, and you've probably already heard about it by now. Amazon saying that, allegedly, saying that yes, this did actually happen. It's a very rare occurrence, and it took a stream of very unlikely coincidences for this to happen. But according to the article and according to all the articles that I've read, Amazon Alexa recording an entire conversation and then misinterpreting some sort of instructions along the way, taking that entire conversation that was recorded and forwarding it to a random contact, I guess in their phone book or email list or whatever. So once again, probably not something we will see a lot, but probably something that I suspect we'll see more of, especially as we are working through getting artificial intelligence to understand what it is we really want it to do. So I'm just putting it out there. If you are having a conversation and you've got Amazon Alexa, you've got Google Voice, you got a dot, whatever it is you happen to have that is turned on, even if it's Siri, if it's turned on, and I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me personally, where I've said something that apparently rhymes with Siri and then started talking, and my entire dialogue or monologue is being typed into my phone. Like there are paragraphs or pages worth of my conversation just being transcribed because Siri thought that I was telling her that I wanted to send a message or record a note or do something like that. So, I guess this is the world that we live in now. And if there was ever a good time to make sure that if you didn't have something nice to say, well, just keep in mind that Alexa, Siri, and a whole bunch of other electronic devices are most likely listening to your conversations. And in the worst case scenario, they might send a copy out to someone else. So just something to think about there. Resorted to hack Mark Zuckerberg account to make his point across and got arrested. Who was that? A well-resounding case was of a guy who discovered a flaw in Facebook login, and after he tried to make a report and cash the reward by notifying the administrators of Facebook and being ignored, his last resort was to hack Mark Zuckerberg's account. Yeah, and again, I certainly don't think it's a good idea to take this to the extent of breaking the law or invading anyone's privacy in any way, shape, or form. So, when it comes to that category, I would say be careful and know if you're going to be breaking the law or not. But as long as you make sure that you're not putting yourself or other people in jeopardy, legal or otherwise, I don't think it's a terrible idea that we have people trying to figure out how we can improve security. I certainly think that by itself is a good idea for a lot of reasons. Let's see. Hi Siri, tell Alexa to start Cortana and use Bixby to search for Avengers movie tickets. Oh, that'd be fun. You should do that. Alexa started evil laughter on some people's echoes. I do remember hearing about that too. That's a freaky one. I was talking to my pup the other day and Alexa decided to tell me what the weather was. It's like the game Rock Band when you sing. You just have to sound like you're saying the words. Yeah, it's crazy, but again, this is the world we live in, and just expect to see a lot more of this stuff happening in the near future. So, quickly, I want to make sure that I didn't forget one of these articles. Oh, where is it? Is it here? Somewhere around here. I have some WWDC stuff on here, I believe. So the HTC U12, funny thing, I made a comment about, I've never seen this happen before. I happened to be doing some editing on YouTube, and I made a comment about the HTC 12 Plus not having wireless charging, and I was sort of poking fun at an article where they said that who cares about wireless charging, and I said, well, I do, it's a deal breaker for me. And almost immediately after making this comment and getting a reply back from someone else, I got a couple downvotes on my most recently published video. What is the irony there? So obviously some HTC fans out there, and I would like to say that HTC, I used to enjoy using and even working on their phones, and after 2013, 2014, it started becoming a lot less of an enjoyable experience for me. And I would still like to see them remain competitive and make a comeback in the market, but it doesn't seem like that's been happening for quite some time now. So I don't know that HTC will continue selling handsets for a long time. But here's the interesting thing. So according to this article, if you buy an HTC U12 Plus, you will not get a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter if you're in the US. And someone pointed this out because they went to check out on this thing and noticed that the U12 Plus does not ship with a 3.5 millimeter to USB-C adapter in the box. It does still include a pair of wired USB-C Sonic headphones, though. Some users do note that HTC is tossing in its $12 headphone jack adapter with pre-orders, but that doesn't seem to be the case in all regions. And what I got from this article was that if you were in Europe, you do get the adapter. If you're in the US, you do not. And of course, the lone comment at the end of this article was that because in Europe, they care about their customers and they have laws that make manufacturers do things that are more in the customer's best interest than we do in the US. I don't know if, that's obviously subjective, but kind of a cool looking phone. And I'm concerned. I don't know what will happen to HTC in the future. They certainly have a very small market share here. They're doing well in other areas, augmented reality, virtual reality being a couple of those areas. But as far as phones go, we haven't really seen them make a big splash here in the US in quite a long time. So who knows? Anything is possible. But I'm not going to hold my breath on this one, and I am disappointed. And I will say, interestingly enough, that this weekend, let me grab these. I had a company ask me to do a review for a couple of their cases, and they sent me a couple to try out. These are for the iPhone X, and cool thing was they do support wireless charging, and I can throw an iPhone X with either of these cases and a number of others onto my wireless charger, which is great. I'm still not particularly a fan of a notch, but I'm sure I'll get used to it at some point. I am happy they did away with the home button, but trying to fix the back glass or even the screen on the iPhone X at this point in time would lead me to say get a heavy duty case for front and back, because you don't even want to invest in the price of that screen itself. Maybe the trouble of Chinese companies can help HTC enough for them to survive. Maybe. I wonder what type of market share HTC has in China. HTC was the pioneer of Android phones, yet they stagnated. I agree completely, Johnny. When the HTC Evo came out, that was, in my opinion, at that point in time, one of the coolest Android phones there was. Just having that kickstand built into the back of it. If you've ever taken one apart, they were one of the easiest phones there was to do a screen replacement on. And when they got into, what was it, the Inspire, and there were a couple other phones that came right after that. And that's when it started getting really messy when it came to design and repairability. And it seems like that's when they started losing a lot of their market share, coincidentally. My mom has the HTC Desire 530, and it is really slow. Yeah, and that was another one, if I remember correctly, that was not fun to repair because they tended to develop other problems after you put them back together. I want to say in regards to the front-facing camera, if I remember correctly. Excuse me. HT Sense UI was the hype when they launched it with the M series. With the camera roll snapping function to take pictures from video, it was a cool feature also. Wow, that would be a cool feature. Real World, do you remember the... Oh, yeah, never mind. I was thinking of LG. I had a 3D phone, but it wasn't HTC. It was LG after all. And I feel like I lost a page here somewhere, but let's go over here real quick. Hey, Harvey, how are you? So, this is what I mentioned earlier. According to these alleged leaks, they're saying that supposedly the Google Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL, and this is, I think, where a lot of these leaks come from. The legitimate leaks is that manufacturers tend to make cases and screen protectors and that sort of thing available as soon as their phones are launched. They need to have that stuff to sell in their stores. They tend to go to third parties to have them manufactured, and that's probably where we see a lot of this stuff. This article from 9to5 Google is saying that the Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL screen protectors show front-facing speakers on both and a notch on the XL. So if you look here at the top, interesting thing about this is that they're also saying that there are obviously two big holes at the top of the screen protectors, whether that's for dual front-facing cameras or maybe a front-facing camera and some sort of other sensor. We really don't know just based on these photographs, but it would be interesting to see. I can't imagine why we would want to have dual front cameras, and I would be more suspicious that this has something to do with facial recognition. I don't know, obviously. But interesting photos here, and there was an area, here we go. So we can scroll down here, and you see they're showing the Pixel 3 without the notch, but both of these having a big opening down at the bottom for what we would assume would be front-facing speakers, and obviously no home button, but definitely a notch if we are to believe what's in this article, and that is that the Pixel 3 XL has that cut out in the screen protector at the top. So a much smaller notch than the iPhone X, obviously, but again, that is another trend that I think we're going to see as time progresses. And in fact, rumors of Apple working on a way to slowly make that notch smaller and smaller, and maybe by 2020 there won't be a notch at all anymore, and then I guess everyone else will start getting rid of notches too. I don't know. Boko Selfie, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, maybe I would think that would happen automatically unless you're standing like right up against something really close, but yeah, that could be it. Telephoto front camera. The second camera is a Google Always On Spy camera. That would make sense, honestly. I know you jest, but it could be. It could be something that's picking up, who knows what, ambient motion in the room. But I strongly suspect it's going to have something to do with Face ID or some sort of facial recognition thing. We shall see, obviously. Don't know for sure. And I want to say that they might have had something else on here. Yeah, they don't really tell us a whole lot, except that they're about 5 months away from launch, so it'll be a while probably before we hear much more about these. So stay tuned, obviously. It looks like Google is implementing a notch display design on the Pixel 3 XL, but not the smaller Pixel 3. We've heard mixed reports on whether or not there will be a notch on Google's coming flagships. This might explain why. Yeah, and so that's about it. This is from... it was on Weibo, which is a Chinese social networking website. They pulled the pictures from there, and then they got onto something called /leaks, and then we get to see them on 9to5 Google. And that's the thing about the internet, right? Once a picture is out there, you can delete it from all sorts of different sources, but if there are copies floating around, obviously the public's going to see it. And whether or not these are intentional, I wouldn't think so, 5 months in advance, but that seems quite a ways out to already be designing screen protectors. So whether or not we can believe, how believable this is, hard to say, but it would be interesting if this is what it ended up happening to be. Augmented reality could be. How can you position the camera above your desktop to prevent spying, then slanted on the edge? Phone over the desktop? I don't know, Johnny. It's a good question. All right, so iOS 12, which we're supposed to hear about on somewhere between June 4th and June 8th, which will be WWDC, where Apple is supposed to be talking about a whole bunch of new stuff that may or may not be coming to their new releases. One of them being that iOS 12, or one of the rumors being that iOS 12 might allow you to unlock your hotel room door using NFC. Apparently something you can do with an Apple Watch right now. I was not aware of that. But we've had NFC in Apple products since the iPhone 6, I want to say, but you don't really see it being used beyond Apple Pay in a lot of situations. So it looks like iOS 12 might expand a little more into that area and hopefully fix a lot of the problems that we've been seeing with iOS 11. Let's close this. How did that end up there? Okay, so let's talk about what phones might get it, and what phones might we see. And I thought that I had this on the screen, so I might have closed a window. Let's see. Did I have an extra window here? Yeah, that wasn't it. In any case, the new functionality is reportedly going to be announced at this year's Apple Developer Conference, WWDC 2018, which gets underway on the 4th. And they are saying basically every phone from the iPhone 6 and up. So the iPhone 5S apparently will get iOS 11, and that's it. Which kind of sucks if you can't downgrade. Cause if you still happen to have an iPhone 5S and you're having trouble with iOS 11, that's where it ends. So I don't know if they're going to push any patches to fix that, but I would imagine your phone's running a little slower by now. Just one of the potential uses of technology which is being opened up to developers, according to information, and I swear, apps not made by Apple. I swear I had a page here of some predictions for WWDC, and I am not seeing it now. What happened to my link? Let's see. The one that functions with tokens, that I don't know. That is a good question. NFC was for 6S models and above. They're saying iPhone 6 and above on here. NFC cannot function with a metallic back, only iPhone 7 and above. But the iPhone 7 has a metallic back, so I don't know. It says, allegedly, on this article, they're saying NFC chips have been included with every iPhone since the iPhone 6 from 2014. So as long as your phone isn't any older than that, you'll be able to take advantage of whatever new features Apple has planned. It looks like iOS 12 won't make it to the iPhone 5S anyway, which will be stuck on iOS 11, which is unfortunate if you happen to have an iPhone 5S. And I'm going to try to find this article because I had a whole list of stuff, and we got a couple minutes left here. Hello. I probably have these links down the bottom of the video description. All right, so here's what we're looking at. They're saying, allegedly, is that maybe we will hear less bugginess overall. This is what we're really hoping for from iOS 12, and that is to fix a lot of the problems that we had with iOS 11. Smooth over the iPhone 10 oddities, and you think it's going to be an iPhone 10 Plus, iPhone 10s, iPhone 11? What do you think will be the next iPhone name? No one really seems to know at this point. If most of Apple's 2018 lineup is going to have the iPhone 10's Face ID, it's time to touch up what's been bothering us most: the strange pull down from the corner control center, or the way the top bar of information now hides key bits of info. Well, maybe. We'll see. Make Siri better. Make Siri great again. Make Siri better. It's improved over time, but certainly a lot more room for improvement there, especially if you compare Siri to Google or Amazon's assistant. So I hope that we make some headway there, because when I ask Siri a question, I generally get, here's what I found on the web, and that's not what I want you to tell me when I ask you a simple question that you think Siri, especially when it's about an iPhone feature. But we'll see. Make control better too. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. 3D Touch can be used for some subsettings, but not others. And why can't we pick our Wi-Fi network or Bluetooth devices from a contextual 3D Touch menu? I don't know. I don't know that too many people care about 3D Touch anymore, to be honest, in my observation. Add iPhone 10 swipe features for all phones. Improved battery management. Multi-user and kids accounts. Okay. Apple is totally behind the curve when it comes to making iOS devices easy to multiple people use. Is that correct English? I'm reading this from CNET. Apple is totally behind the curve when it comes to making iOS devices easy to multiple people to use. What? Wait. To multiple people to use. Devices easy to multiple people to use? I guess that's correct. That's especially true for the iPad, where there should have a, this can't be right. That's especially true for the iPad, where there should have a kid mode. Yeah, I think whoever wrote this article made a few mistakes here. Or maybe did voice to text, or maybe used Siri to compose it, who knows. That locks out features but toggles as easily as it can be turned on an Amazon tablet or Chromebook. Well, that would be good news. Add AI features to the camera app like Google Lens. Face ID redo button. If the iPhone doesn't scan your face properly and has Face ID fail, there should be a much clearer way to try again. I don't know. I don't use Face ID, so find a way to make 3D Touch do something more useful. I would agree, because again, I don't think too many people take advantage, if that's a possibility, of 3D Touch. I really can't remember the last time I saw anyone using 3D Touch, and in fact, I forgot until recently that was even a feature on my phone, and I've had it for quite a while. So yeah, I don't think it's such a big deal. So if they could find a better way to use it, that'd be great, but I think it would be more likely or a better idea, better use of space, just get rid of the 3D Touch feature and that big old Taptic engine that takes up so much room that you can't fit a headset jack inside the phone anymore, right? I mean, just saying, it's possible. Better and more control notifications. Okay, let the iPhone and iPad continue to be different at unique things. What? Two devices should keep splitting. Okay, the iPad should gain even more ways to multitask and share information on a larger screen. Why? I'm not sure. How long do you think it'll be before there is a notch in the iPad? So this is another thing that they talked about, not in this article, but in another one that I looked at, where they were saying that they suspect that the notch or the next device that will see Face ID on an iPhone from Apple is more than likely going to be the next generation of the iPad Pro, which is supposed to be undergoing a major redesign. So we should have a new generation of iPad Pro. Good chance there's going to be Face ID built into that one. And I have to wonder whether or not they're going to use a notch in order to implement that feature. And I would suspect that's entirely possible. And I don't know if you remember, but a while back I was asking how long it's going to be before we have displays, computer displays and laptop displays that have a notch cut out instead of putting the camera above the top, just so we can make more use of that diminished bezel. 3D Touch is just a wow feature. I couldn't agree more, Carl. I really think that 3D Touch was not nearly as successful or popular as Apple would have thought it would be. I'm not even sure too many people are wowed about it, but yeah, I think we could live without the 3D Touch. Multiple accounts on a single device would be a good idea. That is in English. Yes, I believe it is, Greg. I believe you called it. A notch on an iPad. Where are we going to hold it then? I don't know, but I have a feeling it's coming. Just saying, just my prediction. I think we're going to see a notch on an iPad eventually. The iPhone 5S will end up like the 4S on iOS 9, allegedly. Yes, exactly. All-eggedly. iPhone XYZ. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious to see how they're going to continue this nomenclature for future models. What about Bluetooth smart locks? You know, I agree. I'm a big fan of Bluetooth, but everyone I talk to says that Bluetooth is dying. Bluetooth is going away. We're not going to be seeing a lot of Bluetooth anymore. It's all about Wi-Fi and network and NFC, and Bluetooth is outdated. So while I'm a huge proponent, I don't know. It seems like we might be moving away from Bluetooth if we can believe our sources. Let's see. The iPhone XC with different colors. There you go. There will be no iPhone SE-X, mark my words. Yes, and they are apparently or allegedly talking about an iPhone SE2, which they've been putting off for quite a while. You know, it's long overdue, and last I heard, they did talk about having an iPhone SE2 with no headset jack, with Face ID, with a notch, but still smaller size so you can hold it in your hand. Excuse me. So you can hold it in your hand. And I would imagine still a metallic back, and that is a big question. Are we going to continue with the metal back on the iPhone SE? For sure, if you want something durable, that's the way to go. But if they end up adding an OLED screen to the iPhone SE2, then we're going to be looking at a very expensive repair once again. So hard to say on that one. A notch is a wow feature. Okay. All right, so I want to try something, friends, and I hope that this is going to work. That's why I wanted to wait until the end of the stream here, because last time I tried to do this, this machine, or the machine I was using, was struggling, so I'm on a different machine now. And here's my plan. I wanted to show you something, and all of you techs out there, I have a question for you, okay? So this is what I was looking at recently. And one thing that happens quite often is another phone shop, repair shop, will send me a phone that they worked on and ended up experiencing more problems than they had anticipated. And a lot of times those problems come from the technician who worked on the phone initially. And I want to just kind of address that topic, show you guys something, and then for what it's worth, a suggestion for anyone out there who is relatively new to phone repair that I think will help you to save time and money. And that's my goal here. I'm certainly never in a position where I feel like I want to call other people out on what they do, so that has nothing to do with this. But what I would like to do is hopefully make it easier for people to perform repairs properly, not run into problems in the future, and certainly not make their customer pay extra money or lose data or, you know, suffer in any way, shape, or form that they shouldn't have to. So what I wanted to show you here is an iPhone 7. Okay, now check this out. Let's see if this is going to run smoothly. Let me know if it looks really laggy. I can actually kind of see it over here on the monitor once the lag goes away. So this is an iPhone 7, and this is what it does. You turn it on, and it goes to connect to iTunes thing, and then the screen just fades. I'm sorry, it's a 7 Plus. The screen kind of fades out, and it ends up staying just like this. And I had someone describe one of these to me, and I think I saw a video of it, but I've never seen a phone actually do this until it came in. And my first question is, you know, what's the history on this phone? Because the best way we can play detective and try to figure out a solution is to know what led up to this happening. And unfortunately, in this situation, I didn't have a lot of information to go on. It was kind of, here's the phone, figure it out, and here's what happened, it doesn't work. So, you know, that's often the case, and I understand that. For whatever reasons, we don't always get the whole story. But here's what I'm looking at. If you haven't seen this before, this is at least a possibility. So my idea was this. I didn't see any physical damage on the outside of the phone. I have to assume that they've tried multiple displays with the same result. This isn't somebody who's brand new who, you know, might buy one screen, try to fix it, and then give up. You know, I have to assume they tried multiple screens, ended up getting the same result. And my question is, okay, now that we're seeing this, let's try to figure out where it came from. So the first thing I did, and I think I'm going to have to go... let's do this. So the first thing I did is I open up the phone, and this is always my first step. Let's see what we can observe. Let's see if we get any clues as to why this phone is acting up. Now, obviously, when you saw the connect to iTunes thing, you would suspect there might be some sort of software issue. But unfortunately, what happens a lot, and this is the one thing that I really want to discourage people from, if you perform a repair and the phone is working, if somebody comes in with a cracked screen, the phone's working, you perform a repair, and all of a sudden the phone doesn't work anymore, it is almost definitely not going to benefit by a restore or an update, okay? And this is where we start to run into problems, because very recently I had a technician who updated a customer's phone to a version of software that was known to have a lot of problems, and this is one of the things when Apple releases an update. A lot of times people, some people want to be the beta and be the early adopter and update right away, but a lot of us know that the first version of any major update tends to have a lot of problems. So it can be buggy. We want to wait till they patch it, figure out, and not update it. And when you impose that update on your customer, one, it might not be in their best interest, and number two, you might end up with some other problems on the phone. And now we don't know if the original problem came from the repair that you did and or a combination of the update that you performed trying to fix that problem. So what I'm getting at is we want to dig as deep as we can before we resort to changing the software, and in the worst case scenario, wiping everything off the phone that the customer has stored on there. So what I did is I cracked this thing open. Vertical lines are no software issues. The lines look like bent LCD, but many tried weird. It can be sold as abstract digital art. Yeah. So here's what I saw on the inside. As soon as I open this thing up, take a look. Okay. Now this is for the display connector, and it's something that's easy enough to miss if you're not looking at it with the microscope. Unless you've got incredible vision, it's hard to catch things like this. So what I tell people most of the time is get your microscope. If you don't have one, get a magnifying glass and take a very close look at everything in the area or close to where that component is, where we know we are having problems. We know we're having problems with the display. We know that the display was changed out, so 1 and 1 means there's probably some issue with the display or with the way that the display was installed, right? And this phone came to me, obviously, without a very up-close inspection, or they would have caught this, or maybe they just didn't, I don't know the whole story. I don't know if they didn't want to tell me about it, or they didn't notice it, or maybe someone else worked on the phone. It could have come from a completely different repair shop, and they inherited it. So however it got here, the first tech that was inside this phone damaged this connector right here. Now, this alone should not be a problem. There's a small piece of plastic compressed down into that channel where the connector plugs in, which is what happens if you don't take your time and be careful and don't exert excessive pressure. If it's not cooperating, it doesn't snap right in. Forcing it is not the solution, right? We know that. But knowing that this was handled this way, I thought, yeah, there's probably something else going on here. So I did dig out that little piece of plastic. I checked in all these areas. Let's see, I can't reach off screen here because my screen ends right there. But I checked all of the connections in this area, and there's continuity from the inside of the connector out to the area it's supposed to go to on the motherboard. So I've ruled out this area of damage as being the problem. But what it made me think is that there's probably something else in this vicinity that is causing this phone to malfunction. So here's the next thing I saw. Let's see. Oh, so what I did is I started peeling back this little foamy tape, okay? And here's what happened. And you can kind of tell here that connector doesn't look too healthy, right? It's a little bent in more than one area. So I started to peel back this foam very carefully, and fortunately, it didn't go flying across the room, but you see that? Right underneath here, we have a filter that is completely detached from the motherboard. So obviously this is going to cause some sort of problem. I can't say definitively that it is why the LCD is malfunctioning, but I would suspect there's a good possibility that that's what's going on, right? So let's peel that back again. I think I've got a second shot here where you can really get a better view of what's happening. So, that's the other thing about the iPhone 7 or iPhone 6s and forward is that they've got this foam padding inside there. So until you peel that back, it's difficult to see this damage. It's literally obscured by this foamy garbage in here. And that is a tiny, tiny, tiny little filter. To my surprise, these things look like they're the size of those really small resistors, but it's actually a filter. And I would suspect it's a filter for the LCD, which not only is going to cause problems for the display, but also if you attempt to perform a restore on a phone that has a hardware issue, obviously you're going to run into some problems there. This phone was not able to restore properly, and that is probably the reason why. I'm going to find out today. The big question for me, of course, is going to be how to get that thing back on there, because again, I was able to salvage it, tested it, it still appears to be good. It's got continuity through the filter, but attaching this thing right next to the display connector is going to be fun, because as we know, iPhone 7 motherboards don't like heat at all, even more so or less than the iPhone 6 series and 6S and everything before that. So we've got to be very careful with the heat. We've got other stuff on the opposite side of the board. I'm really considering whether I want to get one of those board preheaters really to work on these. Just not quite enough clearance, I don't think, to go in there with the hot tweezers, and I hate to blast this thing with hot air. So yeah, and then we got the underfill issue, and any chip that's directly on the opposite side of the board, if it's got underfill, we certainly don't want to overheat that. Cold brew instead of heat. So if any of you have suggestions on replacing this, I'm curious to hear what they are, or if you've had to do this before. I've done a connector on an iPhone 7 before, but I did go around, remove all the underfill. I did not use a board preheater. Everything turned out okay, but I'm just kind of iffy as to how many chances I want to take in this particular area on the phone. Crazy solder. Yeah, so I have a very thin soldering iron tip, but I'm not... And the good news is, this filter does not connect to ground, so it's not going to have one of those very difficult to solder points on there. But certainly getting enough heat into such a small point without using hot air is going to be a tricky one. So, and I don't want to destroy the connector, because as far as I can tell, the connector's still in good shape. Anyways, I guess that sort of worked out pretty well, which is what I was hoping for, is that we could run a video on here while I'm live streaming and still have you guys be able to see it. Let's see, a dime slice for a heatsink. Yeah, I think, Johnny, I will, if I do go with hot air, I'll almost definitely I will put something over the connector. I don't know that the dime or that the coin would work as well on a piece of plastic. Maybe it will. Let's see, YouTube stopped playing video when you mentioned you removed the plastic piece. Well, there was an end to that video, Greg. I'm hoping that that's where I got to, because it was supposed to freeze once I got to the end of the video instead of disappearing. So I think that might have been what happened, hopefully. And if not, I don't know, I'll play it again. I'll definitely make a repair video out of that if in any way possible. There was a short look at Molex connector for screen. What? Pins not make contact. Need to. I'm assuming these comments came before I showed that damaged component there. You're watching the iPhone Repair Detective segment. Yes. I will watch the recording here. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's what I got. That's what I'm up against. Also, interesting one. I had an iPad Air. Get this. I had an iPad Air come in with a charge port problem. The charge port was installed, I want to say, successfully as far as I could tell, but it still wasn't charging. I go in, and do I have a picture of this? Well, anyways, long story short, I go in and I look, and they've actually changed out the TriStar, which surprisingly does not have underfill, which is great on the iPad Air 2, at least on this one. However, they used a 1610A1 Touch Ice or TriStar from an iPad Air first generation, and I wonder why it wasn't charging. So got that thing back on there, and it works. Again, this one had no underfill. I'm assuming it came that way, but now that I think of it, I don't know if they do or not, because they might have removed that, actually. I'm going to have to do some research. But anyways, that one was pretty easy to, or easier, I would say, than the first generation iPad TriStar, which is a pain. All right, friends, that is it. It is a holiday for some of us, and if it's not, have fun whatever it is that you're doing today. I'll be back on Thursday for the 6 p.m. live stream, and then again next Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I will see you in the future.